I'm Jan with Jan Patek Quilts, and I do needle turn applique. And today what we're going to focus on, last time we did houses, we're going to focus on a different kind of house, but mainly we're going to focus on the windows with shutters. And this is from my heart, which is dedicated to my friend Sandy Gervais, because that's what she says all the time. But I need to show you that awesome heart that Lori Kukuk, my quilter, quilted in the middle of the door. It's awesome. But what we're going to concentrate on today are these windows with shutters and hearts in them and how to do them. Okay, so let's get sewing. Okay, now what we need to do first is, because we're mainly focusing, we've already cut out our house, sewed it together and basted around the edges, and we learned how to do that in the one on Pine Tree Ridge. Okay, now our window, you trace the window out, trace the pattern onto freezer paper and cut it out of the freezer paper. Then you iron it to the front and draw around it and take it off, because what we need to do now is applique the little heart on it. So we have also appliqued, traced the pattern for the heart onto freezer paper, cut it out, and drawn it onto the red fabric and cut it out, just like we do with any other freezer paper applique. I'm going to get this out of the way for a while. Okay, now you need to, and I would, when you're doing this, make sure that the piece of fabric you trace your window pattern on is a little bigger than it needs to be. You don't just want the pattern with a 1/4 inch around there or 3/8 inch, because you're going to have to work with it, and it's a lot easier if you have a little bigger piece of fabric. Okay, now we need to applique the heart, and I don't think we've done outside curves before, so we're gonna do that right now on this small heart. That'll be a good thing to show you on. Okay, I would start about halfway up the leg. The challenging part is the part at the top of the heart. The point down here is a little challenging too, but go back to our one on points if you need to. It's the same technique. Okay, so we started from underneath, as we always do. Come up and just follow the dotted line, which really isn't dotted, but you can't win them all. And make sure that you're staying inside the line you've drawn that you traced around the window. Okay. Sew up, and as you sew, start turning under the heart. Now take your needle, and if you've got a point, which I just had a point there, I don't know if you can see it, but there was a point sticking out when I turned that under. See that point there? Okay, we don't want that point there. So you take your needle and you put it under there and you pull it back until you're on the line, and there's still a little teeny point there, so we will do it again. There. Now, as soon as you get it the way you want it, stick your thumbnail on it, quick. And then take a couple of stitches, and then we're going to have to turn it under some more. Now we're getting towards this top, and I cut it a 1/4 to 3/8 inch, but on those little curves there, you're going to want to trim it, but still cut it big. Cut it the 1/4 to 3/8 inch and trim it now. Fabric frays, and it's much better to have fabric you need to trim down than have fabric that's frayed and hard to turn under. But see, you end up with a real small seam allowance there. But don't do that till the last minute. See, I haven't done it over there yet either. Okay, now you can turn it under, and every time you turn something under on one of these things, you're going to get points, because the fabric keeps trying to go at right angles, and you keep wanting it not to go at right angles. You want it to go at a curve. But just take your needle and put it underneath and pull it under, and then if you have to, pull it out. You've got your line drawn so you know what you want it to look like. We just go around that little teeny curve. Bigger curves are a little easier, but this heart was little, so that's where we'll start. Now we're coming down to the inside point, and we do it just like we do any other inside point. We turn that under as far as we can, and then pull it back with our needle until we get to there. Okay, and you make a double stitch or a stay stitch in the center, and then you pull your heart back out. And this is the same way you do the hearts that are on the vine that go around. It's the same technique. And that one's a little bumpy, but not too bad. He'll iron out. Yeah, he will. So once we get that sewed on, we will take our fabric and we'll trim it down to where it's a 1/4 inch to 3/4 inch around. Okay, now we have a heart sewed on. We have that. Now what we need to do is make sure this is nice and even. So we do the same thing we did with the big windows. We're going to pull the paper out of this. It's not because they're big, but it's because we're going to sew it onto the back of the shutter. So put your paper in and kind of make sure your window is spaced over your heart, because you don't want to cut your heart off. Let's make sure that's over our heart where it belongs. It's got the shiny side up because that's the side the fabric sticks to. And we iron this. Okay, now you just iron down the sides, because I had people struggle and struggle, and I was with one of them once to get these little teeny shutters sewed onto the side. And finally I thought, you know, this is silly. What we'll do, I'm an applique queen. I'm not a piecing queen. What we will do is we'll sew that. We have taken our shutter and we have sewed it, or we have ironed it to the fabric and drawn around it. So we have the outline of where the shutter is going to be. Now we need to sew this onto here. And all we need to do now is, and you see I've left this up. I didn't iron that down. Okay? Or glue it down. And we're going to sew that to the back. To the front, excuse me. To the front of the shutter piece. Okay? Now, after we've sewed that down, we want to get that paper out. So what we do after we sew that down is cut it and cut this, trim it. You can just pull the paper out, but you might as well just cut it and pull that out. And no, you do want to cut it, because what we're going to do now is we're going to take our shutter window piece of paper, not our window piece of paper, our shutter piece of paper, and we're going to iron this down like this. Okay, this is where we need, just give me trouble, a little clover iron thingy. And we're going to glue that down. And see, that's why we needed to cut that away. We need this to adhere to the paper. It's kind of a fiddly thing, but you know, you're dealing with little teeny thin pieces here, and I have found this really to be the easiest way. There you have. You have your window and your shutters. See? With the heart in the middle. And then we'll take our applique glue and glue it down. And there we have our house. We really need 4 windows, but we'll get them later. Yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, to recap, trace your window template onto your background fabric, applique your heart in place, doing the rounded outside curves. Then you trim your background fabric down and applique it to your shutter. This way you get your teeny shutter pieces without having to sew teeny and get everything lined up. Now trim around the outside of your shutter, put your paper in the back, and using your clover iron, iron the edges to the freezer paper. This will give you very precise thin windows with shutters every single time. We certainly hope you've enjoyed this tutorial from Jan Patek Quilts. For more tips and tricks, please subscribe to our channel. Thanks and have a good day.